Hi everybody. This video should explain to you how to find what volume of a three-dimensional shape is, how to find it for three specific three-dimensional shapes: a rectangular prism, a cube, and a cylinder. So let's first discuss what we mean by volume. So volume essentially is how much space you will find inside of a three-dimensional shape. And the best way for me to explain what this means is for me to draw you a three-dimensional shape. So I'm just going to draw a cylinder because it's really easy for me to draw a cylinder. Okay, so it looks like a can of soda, essentially. Okay, and of course, you're not going to see the bottom of the cylinder. Okay, so if we want to talk about the volume of this, and we're talking about the space inside, pretty much what we're talking about is how much stuff we can put on the inside of this. So the way we would measure that is by filling it up with something. So we're going to fill up the bottom. Let's say that we started filling it with water. So the water would fill up this bottom circle. So that's the first thing that it would cover. And then it would just keep covering circles higher and higher and higher and higher and higher and higher until essentially it covered the circle at the top of the thing until it started overflowing. So we're going to pretend like I colored that all the way in. So we took that one circle on the bottom that we filled in, and we just kept stacking them on top of each other for as tall as the cylinder actually was to begin with. Excuse me. That's what we're talking about when we say volume. Now volume, because it's not a flat thing, has to be measured in something that's three-dimensional. So we measured things in regular units, in square units. For a flat thing, we measured little squares. So now for a 3D thing, we're going to measure volume in cubic units because we're counting cubes on the inside. And so, as you can see, for all of these measurements that I've given examples for, the power or the exponent would be 3 for the 3D measure, or the number of cubes on the inside that measure 1 meter on a side. That's what volume is. Okay, so how do we actually find volume in reality? Because we're not going to actually fill something up and see how much water fits in there. Okay, so there's a formula for each one of these things where you're supposed to find volume. The first one is a rectangular prism. So in a rectangular prism, there are three very important measurements. It says volume is equal to the length times the width times the height, and I've drawn or given you a prism here, and I've labeled the length, which is the length of the rectangle on the bottom, the width of the rectangle on the bottom, and h is the height of the whole thing, or how tall it is. So let's say that I give you some numbers for these. So let's say that the length is 6 centimeters or 6 meters. Let's just go with meters. And the width is 4 meters. And the height is 3 meters. So according to the formula here, LWH, all I have to do is multiply 6 times 4 times 3, and that's going to give me my height, my volume. So let's just do this out to the side in a different color. We're going to do 6 times 4 times 3, and 6 times 4 times 3 is 72. And since we're talking about meters, this would be in cubic meters, written M with the exponent 3. But that's how easy it is. You just multiply the three numbers together. Okay, because we found the area of the base and we multiplied it by how high it was. Okay, moving on to volume of a cube. So a cube is just like a rectangular prism, except for the fact that every single edge on this is the same length, because a cube has a square for each face. Every face of the the cube, like where the dots would be on a dice, on a pair of dice, each face is a square. So since the length and the width and the height are all the same length, all we need to know is one measure. So for example, okay, so it doesn't like me now. Let's say that the edge of this is 10 yards. Okay, so I'm going to do 10 times 10 times 10, or 10 cubed, and 10 times 10 times 10, or 10 cubed. Remember the trick for this? It's a 1, and the exponent tells you the number of zeros when it's a power of 10. So 1,000, and then it's going to be cubic yards. And that's all there is to that. Just multiply that number by itself 3 times. Volume of a cube. Okay? Last one is the volume of a cylinder. So this is the thing that I drew at the beginning. Remember, the base of this is a circle. You can't see the hidden part, but there's the rest of the circle. So the base is a circle that's the same size as up here. And so since the base of this is a circle, we have to find the area of the base. So that's the pi r squared part that I have right here. Okay, it doesn't want to draw the line, so try something else. Okay, and then as tall as it is, just like it was before, is the height, which is that thing right there. And so we're just going to multiply the area of the base, which is pi r squared, times h. Okay, so let's get rid of the markings that I have on here. Now, of course, once again, you're going to be expected to know how to do this using, that version of pi, the 3.14, or using the fraction version of pi. Both of these are approximations, meaning it's not exactly what pi equals, but pi is a decimal that goes on forever and never repeats, an irrational number. So we use an approximation to help us find the answer. Okay, so first let's do a volume using 3.14 for pi. So let's say that the radius here of the circle is let's say that the radius here is, okay, that's weird. Let's get rid of that again. Let's say that the radius, I guess I better write it over here. Let's say the radius is 10, and the height is 6. So if the radius is 10, the height is 6, that's a really fat, short cylinder. Nothing like the one that we're looking at right here, but that's okay. We're just going to use the formula, so we're going to multiply pi, and then in this case, remember I said we were going to use 3.14, so we're going to take 3.14 times 10 squared times 6. Okay, so 10. The first part of this, according to order of operations that we're going to do, is we're going to do the power. So we're going to start with this. So we're going to get 100 for that power. There's the 100. And then when we multiply that 3.14 by 100, all we have to remember to do is move the decimal point over 2 places to the right. And so then essentially what we're just multiplying 314 times 6. So 314 times 6, and of course you can use a calculator for this, is going to be 1,884. And I forgot to put a label here, but let's just say that everything is here is meters. So we're going to put that in there. This is all going to be in meters. Okay, and if that's in meters, that means the label here for this, because we're still finding volume, is cubic meters. So 1,884 cubic meters. I just multiplied the 3.14 for pi by with the radius squared times the height. Okay, so now let's do one where we're going to use the fraction version for this. Okay, so that means we're going to use 22/7 for pi. So in this case, let's say that the radius, actually let's do diameter this time, just to make it a little more complicated. Let's say that the diameter is, I don't know, how about 140? And let's say that the height, let's go with millimeters. Okay, so I'm just going to assume that the rest of them are millimeters. And I'm not going to repeat writing that. And let's say that the height is, I don't know, let's go with 5 millimeters. Okay, so if the diameter is 140 meters, we don't need to know the diameter, we need to know the radius. But of course, because we're brilliant and we remember from the last unit, the radius is half of this, so that means that the radius is 70 meters. So then we're going to do 22/7. Let me do a different color now. 22/7. I don't really like that green. Let's go with blue. So 22/7 over 7. Okay, and then we're going to multiply that times the radius squared, so 70 squared. It doesn't like it when I write at the bottom of the slide. Times the height, which is 5. Okay, so now we have to do the calculations. So 22/7 times 70 squared. So we're going to we're going to take care of the power first. So that means we're going to do 4,900. Because that's what 70 squared equals. Okay, then we're going to do 22/7 times that. So I need another color now because I'm going to do some canceling. So 7, this 7 cancels out, and this ends up being 700. So now I have to do 22. Ultimately, I'm doing 22 times 700 times 5. And you can multiply that out. I don't have a calculator right here, but whatever 22, let's see, 22 times 5, I believe is 110. So we're going to have, I'm going to do it in different order because it's easier for me to multiply like that, and you should too. It's easier for you. Okay, so we're going to do 110 times 700. I'm going to do it up here. 110 times 700. And 1 times 700, 11 times 7 is 77. Oops, can't see that. With 3 zeros on the end. And the label then would be cubic millimeters. Okay, so 77,000 cubic millimeters is how much would fit in a circle whose diameter is 140 millimeters and whose height is 5 millimeters. And that's all there is to finding volume. Good luck!